times.
Corey L. Burbach, Assistant City Manager, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Thursday, April 16th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of receiving presentations on certain fiscal year 2027 department budgets.
Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 16th, 2026. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's public hearing. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the public hearing. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate you would like to speak in the chat function. If you are participating via phone, indicate that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. Tonight's attendance is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Council members Leyendecker?
Here.
Resnick?
Here.
Roussel?
Here.
Sprank?
Here.
Staver?
Here.
Wethel?
Here.
And City Manager Van Milligan.
Here. All right, well, thank you very much, Corey. I also want to make sure I state for the record that Assistant City Clerk Trish Gleason, who is covering for the City Clerk's absence, is excused from this meeting. So, our agenda this evening, first up is the City Manager's office, so I will turn it over to whoever's kicking us off.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Anderson Sansey, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnership, and I'll be the one to kick us off today. As always, I want to thank each and every single one of you for your leadership and for your commitment to the residents of Dubuque, and most importantly, for getting out and saying you want to serve people and you want to be an elected official for all residents of Dubuque. I know it's not an easy task, especially in today's days, so thank you for what you do. And to the city manager, as always, thank you for your leadership, your coaching, and your guidance to all of us in the city of Dubuque. So I won't read the vision statement, but I do want to share, as many of you are aware, every single year you get together during your goal setting process and you look at the vision and mission of the city of Dubuque. You are the leaders that help each resident understand where we're at, where we're going, and what are we going to do collectively to move the city of Dubuque forward. Each and every single one of you, although you represent a specific area of the community, each and every single one of you collectively comes together and makes sure that the vision that we have truly represents something that's going to allow everyone to thrive in this community, which is very critical. The role of the city manager's office is to execute the mission and the vision that you laid out. In front of you, you have a folder that I brought to you, and I would just ask that you open it, and I will try to use some of the documents for reference. So one of the things that many of us like to do, once you give us the goals and priorities, you have this strategic plan. We go throughout the community, and it should be probably on your right-hand side. We go throughout the community to make sure our partners know where are we going. And throughout the year, we work with our partners to execute, again, the vision that you've laid out. Internally, we meet with every single city department, not me, but the city manager and the assistant city manager. They meet with every single department head multiple times throughout the year. Again, looking at this and making sure we execute the vision that you've laid out for us. And quarterly, you should receive reports, data on how are we doing with the goals that we've laid out. We want to give a shout out to staff that has transitioned out and new staff that has been welcomed to the city manager's office. So Ann Schreier Although she left the city manager's office, she is still with this city. Councilmember Wethel, if you remember a few years ago, you've talked about how can we leverage city staff across departments to be more efficient. And so we kind of piloted, that's probably the right word, with the previous department, the Office of Shared Prosperity, where an administrative assistant would work with multiple departments to find ways to be efficient. There were some tasks that administrative assistants do constantly that we thought, hey, could one person navigate multiple departments? And as you heard yesterday, the unique thing that the city of Dubuque is doing, I would say unique, is using AI more to figure out ways, again, to be more efficient with some of those tedious tasks. Not to give away jobs, Councilmember Resnick, I heard last night, but to find ways to be efficient and also for ways for city staff to use their brain powers in a new way where we can be more innovative. We can be more creative using technology. So we thank Ann for the service that she provides to the city manager's office and what she will continue to do within the organization. We also have an administrative ERG group. I think you heard about that last night. That is very intentional, getting together. And these are the groups that are using AI and figuring out how to make departments efficient. So I do want to highlight that as well. Justin, although he's no longer with the city, he's still in the community and doing great work. So we truly thank him for all that he has done for the city manager's office. And the tall guy who's left is me, you know, and I'm very thankful to be a part of this department. And I'm very thankful for all of the phone calls when I received this new role from the business leaders, the nonprofit community members, and the advice that they've given me saying, you're going to do a great job. Remember the importance of relationships. And I think that is very important for all of us to remember. Here's a breakdown of all of the great and amazing people that are within our department. Today you'll hear from Assistant City Manager Corey Burbach, myself, and Gina Bell, the Director of Sustainability. So what does the Director of Strategic Partnership do? And so this is something that I get asked by a few people, and I try to break it down in two different ways. The first thing, for those who have lived in Dubuque for a while, I said, well, I'm the new Terry Goodman. And people say, whoa, you got big shoes to fill. And my response always is, I have my own shoes to fill, right? For people who don't know Terry Goodman, I said in most cases, when you look at the business world, they're called government affairs, people who are responsible for building intentional relationships with our state, federal, and local leaders. Again, that document that you saw with the vision that you've laid out, the goals you've laid out, we recognize that it's not just local residents that's going to help us to make that happen. It's also our state and our federal partners. So evidence number two, you know, as I get to drive around with Terry Goodman to go to the Capitol or DC, it's really right away learning so much. And when I'm trying to figure out some of the things that she has felt partnership has been able to accomplish, there's a few things that she constantly reminds me. Number one, probably on the left-hand side, I just want to read you the title from this EPA website. It says, Dubuque's Iowa Northport Revitalization highlighted by EPA as a transformative brownfields cleanup. Now, I'm not from Dubuque, but I've heard a lot of stories about what the Northport used to look like. It was a dump. No one wanted to go there. But what happened, from my understanding, is we had leaders who had a vision at that time, and they believed in partnership. And then they hired Terry Goodman to go bring those partnerships together. And if you look in this article, over $500 million have been leveraged with both public and private dollars. And now you can go to the port now and see all the people that travel all over the world to just visit what we've done collectively. And I want to say that again, what we've done collectively. I think Terry Goodman would be very upset with me if I just kept saying throughout Terry, Terry, Terry. It's what we have done together. The second evidence, which many of you are aware of, this is just right out of our website, the B branch. The impact that has happened when public, private, and the vision has come together. And you can just see with the numbers, for many of you who love numbers, over $282 million, both public and private funding. Now people can walk, bike, enjoy a beautiful area, green space, fish if they wanted to. Maybe down the road play pickleball, but that's a different conversation. I'm not here for that. But that is the role of the Director of Strategic Partnership, working with people collectively to execute the vision that you have laid out. So throughout my time, 3 months, is being at the Capitol, it's interacting with every single one of our legislators. It doesn't matter if they're a Democrat or if they're a Republican or if they're independent. This role is nonpartisan. My job is to build a relationship and get things done collectively. The second thing is very important that works with our city staff is to put our priorities together. Now, through their networks, through the agencies that they are part of, they are able to identify ahead of time the things that will impact our community, and of course, we put it in this huge binder and we give it to every single one of our representatives so that they know these are the things that are most important to us. We also listen, which is very important, to each one of our constituents, our party members. We want to know, what are they talking about as Republicans? What are they talking about as Democrats? What's most important to them? What do we need to be aware about? We also invite them to have dinner with us, which I'm very thankful that each and every single one of you made it a priority for that dinner to interact with your legislators, because again, one of the things that I continue to hear, it's very important when we come together with one voice. When we're divided, trust me, they hear it at each level and they say it to us. But when we have one voice, it's impactful. Also, throughout the years, my responsibility to make sure that I'm reviewing, analyzing, and being aware of various bills that could impact the city of Dubuque. Right away, it seems like property tax was the hottest topic and still remains the hottest topic for us to be aware of as a city organization. All right, and if you've heard from the city manager, Jenny behind us, it's very complex. The intent, from my understanding, is to make things easier for people who are being priced out of their homes. But what we're not realizing is potentially what could happen to residents who are not in that category. And so God bless those leaders at the state capitol that are trying to do what's best for every single resident in the state of Iowa. And I'm so thankful that we have Jenny, because many people depend on her as we're analyzing every single bill that's coming down the pipeline to understand how does this impact us, because it will impact us with whatever they put together. And as my latest text message today, the House and the Senate are still divided, but they're having conversation on this topic. Related to TIF, the only tool that we have to build homes and to help businesses start and expand, you can see in the third document that you have, and I'm thankful for Randy Gale, because one of the things that we try to do, and especially for me, is we have one pages for everything. You know, I can't have a 60-page document. I need something simple that I can give to someone so that way we can talk out loud. But from my understanding, when it comes to TIF, when you talk with our representatives throughout the state, there are some bad actors who are utilizing these tools incorrectly. But what's very important and what needs to stay a priority for this community is we have to share our story, one voice. And with this document, what it does, and you can just see for yourself, you can just see how we in Dubuque leverage TIF for job creation, for housing over the last 15 years. Just to throw out some numbers again for those of you who like numbers, $95 million in TIF has leveraged $836 million in private investment. Just think about that. If you flip to the back, $34.5 million in TIF, spread across 60 projects, leveraged $326 million in private investment. Dubuque knows how to leverage these tools with all of our partners. Again, we're leveraging these tools to execute the vision that you've laid out for us. And we recognize in order to do these things, there needs to be public-private partners. The last bill was Senate File 2532, and it's really a bill that's going after cities' health departments. And guess what? We're the only city that's on that market right there. And so very important, once these things come down the pipeline, I work with staff. I'm the point of contact with our representatives. and I try to make sure they understand how things impact us. They also reach out to me whenever a bill is coming down the pipeline and say, Anderson, could you give us more information how this would impact the residents of Dubuque? I do want to thank all of our representatives because in the first few weeks, I had to reach out to each and every single one of them right away, and this is their busy season. And I would say 100% each and every single one of those leaders met with us right away. So very thankful for that, and I'm very thankful that they reach out and vice versa. So the relationship is good. I also want to thank the Iowa League of Cities and also the Metro Coalition. These are networks of communities and leaders who have this similar issues, and we get together just to talk out loud. It's very important to know that you're not alone in certain struggles. So we talk about various bills, how it would impact small communities or larger communities, and various strategies that we should think about implementing. For example, related to the TIF. It wasn't just the city going down to Des Moines to advocate on these tools. It's working with our partners like Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, the Chamber, the Economic Development Department, again, so that way these legislators don't just think it's the cities that want these tools, but it's also the business community and how the business community is also trying to provide these services, again, because the leaders here are saying this is what we need. And so it's very important when these things happen, we have one voice, doing what's best for the residents of Dubuque, each and every single one of us. So again, I want to thank each one of the representatives. And also, I think it's very important to recognize every 2 to 4 years, leadership changes, as you guys are very aware of that. And so as leadership changes, it's very important for me to be aware of that and right away be proactive to interact with the leaders. Again, it doesn't matter what side they're on. My responsibility is to build a relationship, and whatever strategic plan I have in front of me is to execute that to my best abilities. So we take that same blueprint and we do it at the federal level. So at the federal level, my responsibility is still to maintain and build relationships with all of our federal partners and agencies, letting them know these are the priorities of the city of Dubuque. Whenever there's federal grants that are out there that we apply for, is just making sure that we're at the table talking with them about these various grants. And each time that I've been able to travel, of course, Terry Goodman, everyone knows Terry Goodman, and I gotta admit too, everyone knows the mayor, and so those two have been able to just direct me to the leaders that I need to interact with, and then once I know who they are, it's very important for me to stay following up with them at all times. Also, as a group, again, the One Voice, and many of you will be attending this, we'll do the DC fly-in. Again, this is another opportunity for us to go with one voice advocating for the residents of Dubuque. Very important. Eventually, what happens is our representatives will come to Dubuque and visit us, visit the projects that they've helped funded or supported, or projects where we need them to guide us to the nearest funding sources to actually execute it. So relationship is the business game right here. We cannot lose relationships with any of our state, federal partners, or agencies. The next things that's important weekly, we try to get on, Terry Goodman and I, and at times the mayor, to look for various federal grants that are out there. Again, just to talk out loud. What project would make the most sense for whatever grant that we're going after? And the key always, again, is this one-pager. Not one-pager, but four-pager. You know, when we're looking at various grants, we don't want to necessarily go too outside of our lanes. We just look at what the council told us to do and what's available to execute that. Here are some of the federal grants, and my apologies, it seems like right here you can't see it, but these are some of the federal grants previous to me, the amazing staff was able to apply for. We have the charging and fueling infrastructure grant. As you imagine with Dyersville and all the baseball people coming to our community, you may have people that come with various modes of transportation. They'll need to charge their vehicles. We want to make sure we have that in our community, in our region, so that way people will continue to come. And currently that's at a standstill, but we still travel to DC to ask about these resources to make sure, again, we can leverage it. So it's very important for us to be loud with these resources. And also the Swiffer grant is for us to be able to purchase tipper carts, recycling specifically, and recycling trucks, hopefully offsetting some of the costs for the residents of Dubuque. In the last few months, these are some of the grants that we applied for as a team. The $14.1 million for the East and West Corridor project, and also this $2 million community project funding for the Storm and Sewer Extension project. Again, you can look right on your strategic plan and make the connection of why we're doing what we're doing. I do want to highlight this picture right here. This picture right here was an opportunity to go to the National League of Cities conference. And what really caught my attention at this conference is when they talked about the importance of civility, and also with city staff and our elected officials reminding the residents that we delivered. So when you look at your strategic plan here and you look at all the things that you've laid out, we want to make sure you're aware of what we accomplished, so that way you can go back to the residents and say, we delivered, right? We've delivered on the things that we said we were going to do. And I want to publicly thank Terry Goodman again for her leadership. Again, she is amazing to work with, to guide. I'm happy to have her next to me while I can, to learn as much as I can. And I also want to thank the city staff of Dubuque for all of the work that they get to do every single day. You know, it's not easy being a city staff right now. You know, we hear everything, but it's very important for them to also hear that we care about them and the work that they do. Because imagine this, as someone who also pays taxes, when I turn that water on, it's there. When I flush, it flushes. When I put my trash in recycling, it's gone. When I want to drive somewhere, no potholes. Our city staff are amazing. And so I think it's very important, especially from this department, the city manager's office, that they hear, we appreciate you, we're thankful for you, we're going to keep executing what the mayor and city council has laid out for us. And now I will welcome the assistant city manager, Corey Burbach, and I'm pretty sure she's going to have the similar voice as I do. Oh, shoot. You can see we're in sync.
Thank you, Anderson. Corey Burbach, Assistant City Manager. I'm going to focus tonight on the internal and the administrative functions of our office. So you've already heard from the Human Resources Department about this idea that we have been talking with you about for several years, and that's organizational culture and how important it is. And this work is important for a couple of reasons. One of the things we talk about staff is that it's a different world than it was to work in 5 years ago, wherever you work. COVID, remote work, changing expectations of city government. There are a number of reasons that we are reacting to the changing expectations of our workforce. There's also a thing that I share quite often with staff when they ask, why do we spend so much time focusing on organizational culture? And the graphic that you see on the right-hand side is one of the tools that we use in this work. And if I can boil it down to something, the thing that I share with staff is that every team you are a part of, if you think about your family or your department or the organization as a whole or a sports team you are a part of, every team has a culture. And it can either be set because you're intentional about it and you share your values and your mission and how you're going to work with each other, or it can be set by what happens to you. And at the City of Dubuque, we don't want that second thing to be true, which is why we believe that just as important as some of the performance measures that our departments have shared with you that are external facing, they're the miles of street that Anderson talked about, or the water being delivered, or the programs we deliver, customer satisfaction. Our performance measures as employees, when we talk about annual appraisals, are also focused on how do you relate to each other? Are you exhibiting teamwork? What are those emotional intelligence skills? You've heard in several department presentations, which I was really excited to hear. So I want to recognize the Human Resources Department as they lead much of this work with the city manager's office. And I also want to recognize that you heard about these things from other department managers. We tell our department managers that our expectation of them is that they are cultural architects. And so as we talk about kind of some of the structures that we put in place in this presentation, I want to recognize that every one of our department managers and leadership team is walking this talk every day with their teams. And so I've seen some pretty amazing things happening because of this work. So when we talk about organizational culture, the work that we've done in the past year includes things like making sure that we're aligning the language that we use, from job descriptions to press releases to department missions. with the skill sets we expect, the policies that we set in place, and the structures that we build so that we can be as efficient and effective with the resources we're given by our residents as possible. We have really focused in the past year on making sure that every one of our employees, you all use this phrase, we want to make sure every resident feels like they belong in Dubuque. We want to make sure that every employee feels like they belong at the city of Dubuque and as part of the team that they work with every day. And then we've been doing a lot of work, you heard from Kelly Larson last week, on those systems and structures and policies to make sure that we're putting accountability mechanisms in practice so that the things we say are important are the things that we're measuring and we're looking for results. So some of the work that we have done in the past year in this area, and again, some of this you've heard about from the HR team last night. Have we all been together too much? We have, along with the entire organization that is now completing annual appraisals, this year the city manager's office has really focused on implementing a strong department manager annual appraisal program. And then the thing that I really like about this part is not just that once a year checkpoint, but we have the opportunity to offer all of our department managers and many of our leadership team executive level coaching so that when they say, here's what I did last year, here's what I want to do this year, we can offer them the supports that they need to do that. We also have a team of city staff who are going through a practitioner and facilitator certification right now. The reason we're doing this, we're very grateful that council over the past few years has offered us funds to hire an outside consultant with this work. And they have helped us come up to speed fast, given us outside perspective, and now is the time to make sure that we have the internal capacity to do this work ourselves, that we don't have to continue to rely on that outside consultant for this work. We have focused to that goal of sense of belonging on employee engagement. We talked last night a little bit about the fact that while we didn't do the employee survey this year, we've been very intentional with things like our employee resource groups and something that Mike and I get the opportunity to do, which is quarterly huddle up hours, where we go meet with different groups of city staff. Very informal setting. Mike and I will usually share a little bit about what's going on from our seat, but then it's a chance to engage with the employees and hear what's important to them and answer questions. And then lastly, succession planning and structural alignment of a lot of this cross-department work has been something that we've been focused on this year to make the best use of our staff resources. Another responsibility of the city manager's office, again, in partnership with every department, is to make sure when a resident calls and asks for something or has a concern that we respond. And so this year, we launched Report to DBQ. This replaced an old software that wasn't quite doing what we needed to do. So today, if a resident wants to report a pothole that needs to be filled or has a question for you all sorts of service types, they can go and download this app or they can go to the city website and submit those requests. The thing that this tool allows us to do is manage and track those. As we discussed, we still welcome those walk-ins and phone calls and other ways that we interact, but this is the tool that we use to make sure that we deliver. We've also been focused as we launched this on building the FAQs and mining the data that's out there so we're not just reactive when something goes wrong, but that we're fixing the patterns that we see coming up. And then one of the really fun things about the city manager's office is Anderson shared that 4-page priorities list. We work behind the scenes with all city departments to accomplish the directives that we hear from you. So I wanted to highlight just a few of the successes that we've been involved in the past year. We have worked closely with all of the departments involved in the special event permitting process to make improvements that allow us to continue to have those special events in the community that are really our signature events. I want to recognize Executive Assistant Stephanie Valentine. She is one of the co-chairs of that pilot group that Joe Pregler talked about last night. We have our high-performing government ambassadors who are out there acting as an internal consultant to look for process improvement opportunities and working with departments to look at where we have waste, to look at where we could have better customer service, and where we can deliver on the promises that we're making. I work quite a bit with our Emergency Preparedness Committee, and this is the committee that responds when there is an emergency, a weather event, something like that. But we also have these great opportunities to practice in events that don't feel such high stakes. And one of those is RAGBRAI. And I know that there was a question from the public in a previous public hearing, so I wanted to talk about RAGBRAI just a little bit. As the resident mentioned during public comment, you don't see any improvement packages for RAGBRAI expenses in the budget for fiscal year '28. There's two reasons for that. One is that by the time we found out RAGBRAI was coming, most of our department budgets were submitted. And the second is fiscal year '28 funds don't become available until July 1st, and RAGBRAI is the third week of July. And so what our departments are doing right now is repurposing dollars that are in this year's budget to make sure that we are ready and we're doing the things that need to happen. Sometimes it means things like moving a project up. So for instance, on Monday the 20th, you're going to see a recommendation from Public Works to do some asphalt overlay, concrete work, creek sealing on Loris Boulevard. That's funds that are in the existing budget that when we planned our budget, we thought we would do in August, and now we're going to do them in June to make sure that they're done for RAGBRAI. We have a couple other things that we already know will happen. Fire hydrants were one thing that was mentioned. We have about 120 hydrants along the route that will be painted with existing maintenance funds. We will be planting about 20 trees in the parks that are going to be used for RAGBRAI. Those trees will be funded by the Branching Out Dubuque grant. And then RAGBRAI does give communities that host some funds to use. And so we're working with Travel Dubuque. We have about $20,000 from that pot of funds to pay for staff overtime that we know will be needed for the event itself. So I just wanted to touch on that. That's the approach that we'll continue to take to make sure that we are ready to welcome 40,000 bikers to Dubuque in July. And then, as I mentioned, many of the council priorities that you're hearing about in other presentations, we work to support the departments that are really the public face of those events and policies and projects. Future initiatives in the city manager's office look like more of the same great work. So we will continue in the upcoming year that strategic focus on organizational culture. As we mentioned last night, succession planning in the city manager's office will be a specific thing that we will be working on this year. Now that we have launched that Report to DBQ app and we've got about a year's worth of data, in the coming year, we really want to focus on decreasing response times and being more proactive to those patterns that we can identify from the data. And then, as Anderson mentioned, every day the response to state and federal legislative action looks a little bit different, and we are ready to continue to respond and build those partnerships that let us do that work effectively. City manager's office requested operating budget. The net operating property tax support for this department is about $437,000, and that results in an average homeowner investment for this department of $6.85. In the administrative area, we have one improvement package that is recommended. This is a non-recurring improvement package for $40,000, and this is to help with those succession planning and transitions that we've talked about. So we have some key internal capacity and leadership around org development. One is training and learning development coordinator Kelly Larson. Another is Police Chief Jeremy Jensen, who leads our emotional intelligence team. Obviously, we are thinking about the city manager retirement, although I don't want to think about that yet. And then, as you heard from Kristen Dietz last night, 8 of our department managers, so 6 department managers are new in the past year. We're hiring another 2 right now. That is 30% of our department manager team that has less than 2 years of experience under them. And so I recognize that in the description that's in your book, we do talk about a specific consultant opportunity. We used that to get a good quote on what we thought this would cost, but at this level, we would do an RFP for this service. And this would be to help with some of those staff transitions, do some additional executive level coaching with our newer department managers, and make sure that as we bring on new staff in key positions in this work, that we have aligned our structures to continue to be successful. Couple of performance measures in the city manager's office that Mike hasn't already talked about. Mike has talked about some of the financial things that we track in other evenings. One of the things that we track is around that resident response rate, and we look at the percentage of resident issues that all of our departments resolve in 7 days or less. We target actually reaching out to the resident within 48 hours of a request coming in, but sometimes that's hey, acknowledging your issue, let me do some research and get back to you. So in calendar year 25, 62% of our responses hit that target, and we're going to continue to work towards that 75% goal. And then another thing that we track is really around that idea of workforce retention. So we, in the city manager's office, look at the outcome that you identified, which is hire and retain a highly skilled city workforce that reflects the Dubuque community. In this slide in particular, we're looking at our leadership team. And here, what we're really focused on, I chose female and non-white demographics as two things, but we look at variety and of experience in other ways as well. You can see over the past few years what those trend lines look like. The way we do this is twofold. We try to recruit through different mechanisms and platforms to make sure that our applicant pools are as diverse as possible, and then we hire the best candidate. And once they're in the door, many of the folks that started at an entry level have worked up to this leadership team level. And so when we think about this outcome in particular, we're really thinking about programs like our job shadowing, our employee resource groups, mentoring programs, and giving our frontline staff who aspire to move into leadership team opportunities so that they can continue to grow with us instead of sending them out into the world with the great skills that we build. And our third area in the city manager's office is sustainability, so I'll invite Gina up.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Gina Bell, Director of Sustainability. And I want to acknowledge that 20 years ago, during the 2006 goal setting, then Mayor Roy Buell proposed and received full support for prioritizing sustainability in Dubuque. And it has remained a goal and a priority for all of you during the last 2 decades. It became known as Sustainable Dubuque, and it created a replicable model that includes building on our existing assets, community visioning, setting aggressive targets, and strong partnerships. Residents of Dubuque insisted on setting a greenhouse gas reduction goal and helped to author the first climate action plan. The work has come a long way, and it's been woven into the fabric of the city and the work that we do. And as we look towards the future, I just want to recognize the past 2 decades of work that's already occurred. So sustainability has a lot to do with safety. It touches everything, air, water, our waste, our transportation, the sidewalks, and oftentimes its impacts are invisible or they're avoided costs. And so this tweet I wanted to share with you because it states, you know, the number of people who think that their lives have been saved by addressing air quality issues are 0, but it's more likely a much higher number than that. Our most recent threat to the safety related to the environment is the endangerment finding by the US EPA, and that serves as legal foundation for the regulation of greenhouse gas emissions. And it might not seem like that has a big impact on Dubuque, but what it means for Dubuque is that federal limits on climate pollution from vehicles and industry and power plants could be rolled back, which we would see then increased health impacts, risks like asthma, heat stroke, infrastructure failure, and disaster-related injuries, especially to vulnerable populations like young kids and older adults. It also means higher emergency response costs, more strain on our public works and infrastructure, and potential threat to our drinking water and our housing stability. I promise I won't be a bummer the entire presentation. But there is a lot of safety related to the sustainability work that we do. I also want to talk about affordability because costs are up everywhere, and we work to address that in the sustainability office. So by working on energy efficiency and energy conservation, we reduce the economic burden for all residents. Our efforts lessen the financial shock that unnatural disasters can impose on families and local economies. Marketplace on NPR in last September of 2025, reported that utility-delivered electricity is up 6.2%, and natural gas is up 13.8%. That's on a national scale, not just in Iowa. And as climate disasters intensify across the United States, the average American homeowner's insurance bill rose 12% last year. The graphic is a recent study that was published in Grist magazine that looks like Iowa's insurance rates have went up a lot more than 12%. So what does the Office of Sustainability do to address affordability? So first off, we have our Green Iowa AmeriCorps team, and they offer free home energy audits. They help with energy efficiency in homes, and they've completed 11 energy audits and weatherizations so far this year. They've got 7 more scheduled. We also have the Energy Savers program, which helps to replace outdated and broken hot water heaters and heat sources to low-income families. That helps people save money and energy. And then we also have solar renewable energy projects at the municipal level that then saves energy for the city that we can pass on to our taxpayers. And then additionally, looking for grants and filing for federal tax credits that brings money that we've paid into the federal system back to Dubuque. So the Office of Sustainability is made up of myself and the Climate Action Coordinator, Michelle Kim, who's here with us tonight, and currently two Green Iowa AmeriCorps members, Lizzie Sula and Zoe Heyer. We focus our work on implementations of city plans that are already in existence. So we have the 50% by 2030 Climate Action Plan, and then we also work on other city plans. This is a list of sort of our general work plan, and we're less of a department and more of a multiplier, I would say. We work to institutionalize this work throughout the city and the community. We want to institutionalize environmental stewardship and social and cultural vibrancy and economic impact. We align our grants to goals that you've set forth, and we try pilot projects and then hopefully turn them into longer-term projects or policy. And we take the existential threat of climate risk and we make it into everyday decisions about streets and trees and health and housing and energy bills. Our work is often behind the scenes, and we may not be experts in the particular subject, but we're conveners. And we look to catch inefficiencies and collect and track data so that we can make really informed decisions. And we encourage preventative investments to avoid costly reactionary fixes. In a moment when cities are being asked to do more with less, our office exists to make sure that public funding is used efficiently and has lasting impacts for everyone in our community and prepare us for the future. So I'm not going to go through everything that we've accomplished this year for the sake of time, but a lot of our climate action work has been occurring, and you'll hear more about some of them in details, but I want to highlight the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This is a free online tool that we use. We enter in data about city energy use, and we continue to add more buildings, so we have a record of how our buildings are performing. We can benchmark them against other buildings that are like use and like size to say, wow, City Hall's using way more energy than any other building that's used for an office space like this. There are factors like it's really old, but what can we do? What improvements can we make to make it better? And then another thing that we're really good at is identifying opportunities. And they might not just be for city, they might be for community partners. We submitted a grant after a successful collaboration with Crescent Community Health to talk about a vulnerability study and a future resiliency hub. We continue to strengthen relationships with all of our community members when we're doing that kind of engagement throughout the community. And then we like to align our work with what other departments are doing to try and support their work. So, one exciting thing that we've done this year is the Youth Climate Action Fund. So this is a Bloomberg Philanthropies funded initiative. On the slide, you can see the global impact, but locally in Dubuque, we distributed $130,000 to Dubuque's youth. We did 29 projects in our own backyard, and more than 100 youth participated in these different projects. All of them aligned with our Community Climate Action Plan, and I think it's really cool that Dubuque was one of 98 cities worldwide to participate. Another highlight, this first picture is from the Teen Resiliency Corps, and I'm gonna read you a quote from a parent. He wrote, "My son loved the Teen Resiliency Corps, and it did everything any of us had even hoped. He developed confidence and more than a bit of grit and toughness. He now recognizes a variety of trees, native and non-native species. He's way more comfortable just stomping through brush. Okay, hold on, next page. And the backwoods, and he made some really beautiful friends. I could go on, but you all did a really cool thing for some people at a really formative age. Bravo. So Teen Resiliency Corps has been around since 2020. You fund it through initially through an improvement package, and now it's just built into the sustainability budget. We pay teens to go door to door in their neighborhoods. We've aligned it with work at the Multicultural Family Center and our branching out Dubuque initiative, the tree planting initiative. So these teens have been planting trees, watering trees, caring for trees, but then also learning a bunch of conservation jobs and efforts throughout the city. And then I think our hope is that eventually they'll all become Parks Department employees. The other thing I want to highlight is subnational diplomacy. So we were invited to attend a local leaders forum. The mayor was actually invited but couldn't attend. And so Jill Connors, the economic development director, and I went in his stead. And we got to meet with world leaders. This is a picture of us with London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And we came back with lots of ideas and some funding opportunities and really great relationships. And we were so proud and honored to represent Dubuque at a world stage. Another highlight is our outreach and education efforts. So we have been in schools, we've been with residents, and we also worked on a internal outreach effort. So we did a 21-day challenge called Earth Day Every Day for city employees, where they got to learn about the work that we're doing in Dubuque and what actions they can take to support it. And it got a really great response. We also started hosting Sustainability SIPs, which is on the fourth Thursday of the month, where we invite community members to come and talk about their climate actions, because it's not just a city plan, it's a community-wide plan. So the city is not responsible for doing all of the actions in the climate action plan, and we want to know what other residents are doing. So for our future initiatives, at the local leaders forum, they called it our yearly offering. So here I am standing in front of you with our yearly offering. We plan to continue our implementation of the climate action plan. We also have a plan to update it. There are hundreds of actions in it, and some of them are very, very specific. And so if we want to check that box, we're not going to get there. So we want to take a look at it, review it, and update it internally using city staff resources to make sure that it's accessible for everyone. We also will then use it to integrate to our Achieve It reporting system so that that's an easier transition. We also want to continue our Energy Savers program, which is a heat source and hot water replacement program. And then we have some municipal solar energy projects in the works. We'll continue with our engagement and outreach in the community. And we also want to offer internal support. So an example of this, we have an internal working group that looks at buildings and maintenance, and we want to continue to look at how can we make efficiencies and save the city money with how we're operating our buildings and our maintenance schedules. We also are working with city departments that have renewable energy projects that are eligible for a federal tax credit, and we're applying for those tax credits so that we can continue to bring this money back to Dubuque. So, the non-recurring recommended improvement request for our office is for the Climate Action Coordinator. This position is responsible for implementation of the Climate Action Plan and so much more. Initially, it was funded as a limited-term 3-year position. It was proposed to City Council by the Resilient Community Advisory Commission. The request is for a 1-year extension. It has no tax impact, as you can see on the slide, because it's being funded using funds that Michelle helped to secure for the city through the Inflation Reduction Act. That brought federal dollars back to our city and state. She has managed our Bloomberg Youth Climate Action Fund, so that was $150,000 that brought into our local economy. And the position also supports the greenhouse gas inventory process. She's completed a municipal building inventory. She gathers and analyzes that monthly data related to energy use for our city-owned buildings, plans and implements community-wide events, implements grant-funded projects, and piloted a commercial building and residential energy efficiency program. The second non-recurring recommended improvement request is for the Energy Savers Program. So I mentioned that we've been doing this in this fiscal year. We're set to complete at least 13 projects this fiscal year in the next couple of months. There are 68 people that have applied, either a full application or have been added to the wait list. And that was a really limited outreach. This is a huge need. And prior to the work, each home receives a home energy audit from our AmeriCorps team. They recently were in a house, and the furnace didn't pass the carbon monoxide test. So they did this safety check, and they were able to inform the resident, like, hey, this furnace is leaking carbon monoxide. So not, again, we're going back to the safety issue, but it really demonstrates the need for the program. And we also have another recipient that has been showering at someone else's house that can now shower in their own home. That is also being funded through the Inflation Reduction Act funding. So the Growing Sustainable Communities Conference. This is really bittersweet because the proposal is to eliminate the conference moving forward. I want to first thank our partner, Travel Dubuque. They've been a great partner. The conference has seen a lot of iterations. It's been a meaningful space for learning and connection, and there are lots of projects that are happening in Dubuque that happen because of connections that were made at that conference, which is the hard part. But things have shifted, costs have skyrocketed, and a lot of other conferences that fill a similar topic have popped up since we started it. So initially it was the only one, and now there are several, and so competition has grown, and we just can't justify the cost anymore. And so it's a savings for the city to eliminate this, however bittersweet. And then we have 2 recommended capital improvement projects. Again, this goes back to installing solar on city-owned facilities. This would reduce our actual energy costs as well as greenhouse gas emissions. We're looking at approximately a potential savings with both buildings, so one is at the library and one is at the MFC, or the Multicultural Family Center. We're expecting about a $20,000 annual savings in energy costs. And then it does qualify, if we start it soon, for a direct pay tax provision, which would bring a one-time payment of almost $90,000 back to the city. So this is making money for the city. We think it's really important. And both of these places currently serve as warming and cooling shelters for the residents during high heat and severe weather. And so the idea would be eventually it has future potential for battery backup, and they can serve as resiliency hubs to fill a community need as we see more and more climate impacts. So for our performance measures, the Sustainable Dubuque grants, we really want to see that we're funding about 85% of the grants that we've received, and we're at 59%. To date, pending approval on Monday, we'll have granted 200 awards to different community members, and that's an investment of $327,000 since the program started in 2013. We have seen an uptick in the amount of applications that we've been receiving because I think other funding sources are drying up, and so people are getting creative of how they're funding their projects. We have a tree canopy goal of 40% covering the city, and to date, well, not to date, as of the end of the year, and not a lot of planting has happened in the winter months, but we've planted 401 trees through our Branching Out initiative. We've had 198 individual volunteers, and 586 volunteer hours were logged. We also got word from the Forest Service that we could expand our eligibility for this program, so it was limited to 5 census tracts, and we got to expand it for income qualified individuals citywide. And so our spring planting alone, that increased participation by 11%, and we're expecting to see, as we continue to get that word out, that participation will grow, and we'll see additional trees planted all over the city. Our current status is about 30%, and our end goal is to plant 5,280 trees. And then these are really preliminary numbers. We're doing our 2025 greenhouse gas inventory, but This is looking at, we're on the right track. It is using 2024 transportation data, which we're working on getting the 2025 data, but it's using the same emission sources that we initially used when we did our inventory in 2003, which is our baseline year, which is what we're trying to, our goal is 50% of the 2003 levels by 2030. I want to point out, though, that this is not a science-based target, and so for a future work session, we'll have final numbers on this, and we will be talking to all of you about setting a science-based target, as well as one that goes beyond 2030, which is in 3.5 years. And with that, that is it. So thank you very much, and I think City Manager's Office can take questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Gina and Corey and Anderson. Appreciate it. First, we'll go to public input. We are here to talk about the City Manager's Office and everything you just heard about. So do we have any public input this evening regarding this presentation?
Back again. Clerk Slows, 2925 Burlington Street. And just some simple questions that really I kind of forgot to ask at the last time. Page 222 of the capital improvement kind of lists, some various fundings like local tax dollars, federal tax dollars, state tax dollars. And for the local tax dollars, like roughly 26 million. If you add the federal and state money together like 92 million, that's a fair rate of return on local investment, bringing other money back in. And I kind of asked the question to myself, I'd like to kind of know from Mike, of all the grants and stuff that are applied for, what's the batting average for the city? Are you successful on 40%, 50%, 60%? It'd be just kind of interesting to maybe use that as a performance evaluation for just how successful you are for bringing in other money, because there is a lot of projects that if it wasn't for state and federal aid and using local money as kind of that match, that there are a lot of projects that would still be waiting instead of being completed. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Clark, for your comments. Other public input this evening? Yes, please.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Van Milligan. I'm here, my name's Gary Linden. I'm at 480 East 14th Street in Dubuque. I have since we're talking about budgets, I want to, the members of the committee, I'm here to formally ask for a transparent accounting and a review of the $75 municipal storage container permit and inspection fee currently levied against the local businesses. Since the 9/11 implementation of this policy, business owners have been subject to this per unit fee under the guise of public safety. The stated justification was the necessity of inspections for explosive devices. Inspections originally conducted by the Dubuque Fire Department unit has since ceased these specific operations. The city continues to collect the $75 permit inspection fee for specialized service that the fire department no longer performs. Collecting the fee for a service not rendered is a breach of public trust. This per unit charge acts as a permanent tax on local businesses that rely on container storage, continuing long after the specific safety program that justified it has ended. A policy enacted as an emergency measure over 20 years ago must be reevaluated. It has evolved from a safety protocol into an unchecked revenue stream that lacks modern relevance and transparency. My request would be a public accounting of where the permit fee, inspection fees have been directed over the past 5 years, since my unit has never been inspected at least for 5 years. I don't see anybody. I don't get a sticker on the container saying that it was inspected, and that's initially how it started out. The immediate removal of this fee if the specialized explosion inspections are not conducted. A formal review by the Budget Committee to ensure that any municipal permit fee is tied to an active, verifiable service rather than a defunct legacy program. In my closing, the public safety must be active, not just a label on a line item. We support safe storage, but we do not support paying for ghost services. We ask the committee to provide the transparency businesses deserve and end this outdated fee structure.
Thank you, Gary, for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Please.
Leonard Dress, 541 Groveland Place. Anyhow, okay, I hear, we're talking about, trying to make stuff more energy efficient. Now, okay, my wife and I bought her a new washing machine and dryer. It's more energy efficient on water consumption. The old one's 30 minutes, your laundry's done. The new one, 63 minutes. So what's cheaper, water or electricity? Our windows in our house, we didn't need new windows. I mean, my house, I was heating it on the budget plan, $33 a month. But I thought to make it easier for my wife for cleaning, with it being a raised ranch, I went to double tilt. And since then, I know we can say, well, the cost of stuff went up, that's why the price of your budget went up. I don't look at that side of it. I look at the usage side, that my furnace is running with my thermostat now being set at a lower temperature. And water's sweating now. Well, when I address that to them, well, temperatures change here and there. Well, yeah, they change here and there, but to make your budget plan go out that much, the company said, is what I told the company. They said, well, here's a chart how your humidity should be. Now, how many people in this city do you want to get windows put in to where the companies want them to have zero humidity in their house when the outside temp hits 10 degrees? I mean, when I go around to places, if I'm shopping, and I see this company advertising, and there's people there, I love it when there's people there so I can explain to them how to read the warranty, because that's going to get you, and you're not going to be happy, and you're going to spend more money in the long run. I had different heat and air companies come in, and they said remove the humidity, probably still would not take care of the problem. Now, the trees. I got no problem with anybody having trees. My property has 0 trees. I'll tell you what, with the mess I get, trees are messy, very messy. They're worse than a kid with a runny nose. The wind blows, it's like my driveway is a tunnel to collect it. I mean, all through the winter, the wife and I was out there picking up neighbors' leaves. If a neighbor wants to have it, why? And say I have the trees, Mayor Kavanaugh, you have none. And my trees are making a mess on your property. Let's make some way to where I'm responsible for my mess getting to your property. I don't mind going out, I mulch them up, I take a leaf blower, blow them up, all that stuff. And I guess when I look at stuff, I look at, okay, now, what's the best way to go with it? And my last thing is with the storms we've been having. I know we got West Locust on the 5-year. That cars, there was videos on Voices from the Tri-State. Cars going over them blown manholes. Surprising someone didn't get hurt. pop a tie rod in or whatever, flip their car, get killed and that. But I think we need to figure out a way. I mean, on my end of town, we got the park up there. Right now, we got a big mud hole, but that mud hole ain't hurting anybody's safety like the storms on 17th. And I think that money should be shifted from there to West Locust and 17th Street. Because, I mean, that is a big health and safety hazard to all the citizens of Dubuque if they drive through there. They might be commuting on their way home when a storm's going through. So, but I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me, let me come down and voice my opinion. You have a great night.
All right. Thank you, Leonard, for your comments. All right. Don't see any other members of the public here tonight. Anyone virtually?
We do have one, Rob McDonald.
Please, Rob.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Rob McDonald, 3399 Eagle Point Drive. Similar to my comments last night, I just want to shine a light on the level of administrative overhead recharges in 3 of the departments tonight. We just heard about the city manager department, and that level of overhead recharges covers 71% of expenses of the entire department. Later tonight, you will hear from city clerk's office, and that has administrative overhead recharges that cover 55% of the entire department. And at the end of the evening, I believe, is the city attorney's office and the administrative overhead recharges. And for the public's benefit, these are funds that come out of the fee charging utilities, storm, water, sewer, refuse, and the like. But the city attorney's office has 78% of their expenses covered. And that one is very striking because I would have to think the city attorney's office spends a tremendous amount of time working with the police department. Certainly there's a capital improvement package tonight for them to be able to access records directly that the police department has access to because they spend a lot of time going through the police department to get it. So basically, as I said last night, the enterprise funds have approximately 10% of the employee headcount of the city, yet here we have operations that are being paid for in the levels of 71%, 55%, and 78% by those funds exclusively. So, we heard last night after talking about the 78% charge recharges for the HR department that the explanation was, we have to pick a process. There has to be something, and so this is how we do it, and we level load the expenses across the departments. And it seems rather arbitrary. And unfortunately, being arbitrary, it's gotten to be arbitrarily high. The big concern, for people listening is this money comes out of those funds that support our infrastructure. So instead of staying in the enterprise funds and taking care of the infrastructure, it's going to support city departments, which is all part of the plan. But I don't think part of the plan is to fund the vast majority of a lot of these departments out of those enterprise funds. When we don't keep the money in those enterprise funds, we can't pay as we go, and then projects don't get done. And if you look at the woefully underserved infrastructure we have, we can talk about the sewer department, where the new apartments on Cedar Cross we're required to put in, I believe, 2 6,000 gallon tanks to collect sewage from those units, 120 units in times of heavy rainstorms, which we've had the past couple nights. because the system gets overflowed because there's so many leaks in the sewer. And there's been studies, and we know that Dubuque's an old city, but even old cities keep their infrastructure current, and we haven't done that. If you look at the stormwater, Lenny Dress there just talked about West Locust and Kaufman. That's been a problem for as long as anybody can remember, and still we don't have money for it, but we keep taking money out of the enterprise funds. And lastly, the water department, Asbury Road, our company sells repair clamps when water mains break, and that's the only redeeming thing I ever see when Asbury has water main breaks multiple times in 1 year, because that water main is so underserved. The last comment I'll make, when the city decided to replace Chavanel Road back, I believe 5 years ago, it was a 45-year-old road. It was very bad, and the reason it was bad is because the sub base was never prepared correctly in the early 80s. When the sub base isn't prepared correctly, it affects the utilities underneath. And the initial plan on Chavanel Road was to not replace the water main and sewer underneath that road when they were going to do a total reconstruction, which is kind of unheard of. When you have a 45-year-old road and you're going to reconstruct it, you replace the water main, you're in there. But the decision was made not to do that until there were such bad water main breaks when pressure rose that the city broke their main in multiple places, and there was a rush of water coming down the construction area. And then the city was forced to spend $1 million to replace the water main. Those are my comments. I appreciate the time tonight. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Rob, for your comments. So no other virtual? Okay. All right, thank you, Corey. All right, and we'll come back to us for discussion here. So I'll start us off. I'll just say for beginners, I'll kind of go in order here. Anderson, welcome to the new position. I just want to let everybody know at the desk here, because you probably haven't had as much chance to work with Anderson as I have. We really hit the ground sprinting, essentially, in the last couple of months. And Anderson's really taken the role on very, very well. I'm really excited to have you on board. You're learning very quickly in areas where quick learning is absolutely required. So I appreciate your enthusiasm with it. I just want to say that personally. So welcome to that. But what you described in the work that you do and the work that office does, I think it was very spot on, and it's incredibly important work. As was pointed out, the batting average. I don't know if we have that answer, the batting average for our grant funds and how that works. I don't know if we track the ones. Mike's looking at me a little bit funny here. I don't think we track what we actually gain and what we lose in either monetary value or numbers of grants necessarily. So we might look into that a little bit more. But, I know that we obviously have had some great success over the years as a community, and well before my time in this role, but then also as we've continued on in these last few years to be able to have some ability to do some really big projects. And your idea about partnerships is absolutely what it is. It's making those partnerships and all of us in Dubuque working together to try to get that done. And it's been very, very successful. So thank you for that presentation. And then Corey, just to continue on from the human resources presentation from last night, the work that's being done internally is, I think you pointed out, so incredibly important and is showing some results. And I appreciate the fact that that's something that we're working on so hard. We do need to have a citywide organization that, I think, as you put it, where people feel they belong and people want to stay. That is the mark of a great workplace, and I think we should try to be a great workplace. I think that's a really important thing for a city government. So thank you for your work on that, and everybody who's involved in it. I know it's a very much a team effort. And then finally, to the Sustainability Office, Gina, you said something at the beginning that just got me thinking, and I just started writing down a bunch of things here about the fact that, it was Mayor Buell who, when he first became mayor, was the one who really proposed this idea of a sustainability office, and then the city took it on, and the residents and the community agreed with it and said, yeah, let's do this, and it became Sustainable Dubuque. And you said, it's not so much, I'm paraphrasing you, I know, but it's not so much that you are a single department that does these tasks. You have infused sustainability into everything that we do as a community. And I just wrote down a list, and this isn't going to be comprehensive, but I'm going to go through it because I think it's useful, just to talk about some big projects and how departments use the idea of sustainability and what it means for us as a community. So we've got the B branch, which I think is our, it's the crown jewel of sustainability in so many different ways, but it involves engineering, it involves parks and rec, it involved pretty much everybody. I mean, there's actually posts there that were put there by the fire department just in case they need to save somebody. There's all these incredible things that happen with that, but it's all about how to make it a sustainable and resilient community, especially in the North End where flooding was happening all the time. Road construction, roundabouts, moving people faster, making that more efficient. Storm preparation, so we just heard about storms and flooding in streets, and that's absolutely resiliency and sustainability at work. Our water department, getting, with PFAS mitigation, making sure our water's clean. Water and Resource Recovery Center, methane recapture and clean processes and practices there. We learned a lot about that the other night and still working on that. Methane recapture at the landfill. Housing efficiency within the housing department. EV buses for the transportation department. Building energy, so buildings like this one, making sure that we're trying to be more efficient in our buildings. I can't read my own writing about parks, but I wrote the B branch there, and just healthy land practices. That's what I wrote down. So like healthy land practices and things that are taking place there. We've got a major solar array out at the airport. That's another example. The Office of Community Impact and Multicultural Family Center, in some ways, this is the most impactful area because it involves people individually working together to make it a sustainable community. So I think of it as Wethel and I live in the same neighborhood. We have an active neighborhood organization. One of the biggest things we do is a spring cleanup every single spring. We get together in the park behind my house. We all walk around and do some cleanup, and it makes an impact on not just our neighborhood, but on us as people, brings us together. Also, our kids get to learn a lot about that too. And the youth education with the MFC is another big part of that. I thought of the fire department and getting PFAS out of their gear. Their gear that they wear was poisoning them, and it was seen all over the United States, and this is something that was a movement. We jumped on there and made sure that we helped to get those things replaced too. And then obviously health services. I think the point I'm trying to make is I really think that your office makes life better in Dubuque and makes the environment that we all share here more healthy and more enjoyable, honestly. And I think it's something that, you said a lot of the work you do is behind the scenes, but it's actually right in our face. It's just everywhere. That's what it is. So I appreciate that, and I think it's really important work, and I'm excited that we've been recognized for it internationally, but that also that our community continues to want it. It's something I hear about all the time. So thank you very much for that. All right, open it up to other discussion, questions. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Bell, I appreciate what you did and showed us what you do and talked about how important that is for all our residents. You did say a few words, and words are very important, and it's people are divided about certain words. Such as climate. That word just triggers people, and renewable energy for some reason. But I just wanted to say that all the things that you're doing are very important. And if the climate action coordinator was called in charge of energy management, it would get a lot more popular. It's like, that's what we're doing. Do we really want fossil fuels ruling our lives? Just look at the recent, world events, because we're so hooked on fossil fuels that, people go to war and people die because we need to have that. Why can't we have renewable fuels? Why can't we do it the sensible way? Why can't we come together and think about how we can make, very important energy, renewable and making sense? And the good part is I'm glad that people talk about their opinions and what's important to them. And the mayor just talked about this sustainable position that was hired, and one of the first in Iowa, was because it came from the people. It was one of those thousands of people talked about what we really want to do is be responsible. If you don't want to say sustainable, how about responsible? Let's not waste. Dubuque people are not wasteful. I see what they do. They reuse things and they hand things down from their families. I hope I don't digress too much. But I'm just talking about words. We're getting a lot of positive words about Ms. Kim and what's happening with her. We're very glad you came to Dubuque and doing so many things. And I'm glad that you pointed out, Ms. Bell, that it is to know it is not costing the city of Dubuque residents anything to have this valuable person here who cares for this community and the people. So, I mean, I appreciate so much that we learn, and that I'm hoping that, you know, the people in Dubuque who work hard, play hard, they're responsible. They look at the city they've been handing down and taking care of and handing down, and now it's the masterpiece on the Mississippi. Again, those are the people that live here, and I think you really do great work for all of them. So I wanted to thank you for that, and I appreciate everything that goes on in the city manager's office. It is a place for everybody. You walk in there and they do want to help you in so many ways. So anyway, I wanted to make those things stated, and we can talk about money in a little bit, but I just wanted to start with that. And Mr. Mayor, I'm sure other people would like to talk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Isaac? Mr. Sprank?
Yeah, thanks. First off, I enjoy a lot of what the department does because it is good things that we need. Like, I really like the fact that we're going to be able to help landlords with low-income eligible tenants to be able to replace their furnaces or hot water heaters. So it's homeowners as well as landlords. So that says something to me. But I do have a question about 3 of 4. If that's been eliminated, is it a typo that it says it's recommended as a yes in our budget binders? Because I'm a little confused about that. It's been eliminated, but it says it's a recommended yes. So I'm a little confused.
Recommended.
It was on. It was the improvement package 3 of 4, the sustainabilities conference.
So yes, the recommendation is to eliminate the conference.
Okay, so it's a no. Got it. Just sounds yes. Okay. And then I guess just can you explain one more time what's the funding sources for the Inflation Reduction Act funds? Like, that's a federal grant. Is that correct?
It is a direct pay provision. So in the Inflation Reduction Act, the tax code changed to allow government entities and nonprofits who normally wouldn't have a tax burden to get a tax credit for qualifying renewable energy projects. So the project at the airport with solar and battery backup, as well as, was it EV charging? Do you remember what the other project was? Yeah. EV charging infrastructure that we installed, we then applied for the tax credit. And a lot of that was Michelle's work, along with the finance department, to get that money to come back to Dubuque. And so then we got the tax credit, which is what we're proposing using to fund the position, as well as some of these other items.
Right. And then I guess my last question, and I'm not against this because I have solar on my own home, is where's in the capital improvement project, it doesn't specify where the funding source is from. Just trying to figure that out.
It's the same funding source, that same direct pay provision.
Gotcha. So it's coming from a federal grant as well.
Yeah, a federal tax credit.
Federal tax credit, gotcha. And that's how we'll get the 90,000 back on it.
Yes, so then once it's installed, if we meet certain requirements, we would then apply for a credit on that project.
Okay.
So it's a self-funding, sort of like a revolving loan fund, which
sense.
then expires soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Rousseau?
Thank you.
Don't run too far, Gina.
Yeah. Gina, as the mayor said, I really like that you reiterated the fact that this has been a goal since 2006. It's not anything new, and it's come from residents. And what I wanted to share is the number of people that have contacted me saying, please do not eliminate this work that's already in process, that's already doing such good work in our community. So thanks to the people that reached out. So that good work is being noticed. Second thing I wanted to mention is the Teen Resiliency Corps. I've worked with them. They did a project up at the Hill Street Orchard, great people. And what it's also helping is the staffing that we're going to need, like in our Parks Department. These young people are learning how to work in the city environment. And so we're getting work now, and we can be getting future workers in the future. And the last thing I want to mention, of course, is trees. So yeah, they're messy sometimes, but you have to remember that trees have environmental benefits like cleaner air, cleaner water. They slow that storm water that we're seeing these big rains. Trees slow that water as it comes down to the street. You know, carbon sequestration, social benefits, and economic benefits when you have a tree in your yard to save on your energy costs and to have more people spend more time in the business districts where there are lots of trees. So the branching out program that's bringing trees to homes and businesses and parks is going to bring so many benefits beyond just the beauty of those trees. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Saber?
Yeah, since Gina's up here, I had a question. Without your department, is it true that there's some, maybe this tax credit or some grants that we wouldn't even be eligible for if we didn't have the department or the department is part of one of the requirements to get these grants, or is that true or not?
I think it changes with each administration, but yes, some do require that you have a sustainability department, that you have, in the Biden administration, we were seeing with the Inflation Reduction Act that a lot of funding, we had the initial target of 50% by 2030, but they wanted us to set a longer term target. So it does open up a lot of funding possibilities, especially private funding that we're seeing. Bloomberg wouldn't be interested in Dubuque if we didn't have sustainability initiatives. So it does attract a lot of funding.
But it's kind of dependent on the administration, so kind of ebbs and flows in that sense.
Yes.
But certainly it's brought in the past, during the past administration, for sure, probably would have been a net positive if we're just talking about dollars, not, I know what you do is a net positive, but, okay, yeah. That's all I was wondering about. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Weffel?
Sure. I don't really have a question, I don't think, but Mr. Resnick spoke of the power of words and how some words right now seem to have a culture of negativity, but one that does is cancer. And so Iowa has the second highest cancer rate in the country. And although I can appreciate some people don't see the connection of your work to things like cancer, there's a direct correlation to this work, whether it's looking at ways that we as a city in our own buildings can make changes to be more sustainable, to use less resources. But when it's mitigating PFAS and looking at radon and nitrates and all of those things, there's a lot of interwoven health themes throughout the city's work. And so I work in healthcare, and I'm glad that you're in your role, and I'm glad that in 2006, the residents of Dubuque and the council made the decision to do something a lot of places weren't. Well, no places in Iowa were. And I would never undo that work, and I only plan to support it. Thank you.
Mr. Linder?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to the Climate Action Coordinator, so I think we all have heard a lot over the past day or so about this position and questioning, exactly what the position does, what's the return on the position. I fully understand it's hard to measure some of these things, but if you can, Gina, just maybe take a deeper dive into the position. What's the goals of it? What are we looking to accomplish here in this fiscal year by having it in the budget?
Yeah, so it came forth from a recommendation with the Resilient Community Advisory Commission, and it also was coupled with 3 actions per year. So they set up a limited three-year term position with 3 actions from the Climate Action Plan for the coordinator to complete. The challenge with that is that each one had a price tag attached to it, and they weren't always funded. So there was a work plan. It was very clear. It was like, in 3 years, we'll have 9 projects finished, we'll get this much greenhouse gas reduction, and then we can reassess. That was the initial goal when the Resiliency Commission brought it forth. Since then, it's shifted, and we have made do with very little. I come from a nonprofit background to like stay as close to zero as possible. And so we're scrappy. We look for outside funding, and a lot of that then falls to the Climate Action Coordinator to look for outside funding, manage programs that do bring in that funding. So the Youth Climate Action Fund, we did use some of that administrative overhead funding to help support the position in the last fiscal year. Constantly looking for ways to manage our energy. We're fighting, I didn't say this in my presentation, but $80 billion of subsidies to oil and gas in the United States annually. So when you're talking about the size of our budget, it seems like very minuscule, but it's a big problem that we have to address. So every action that the Climate Action Coordinator takes is related to implementing our plan. To go back to the initial setup was this very clear work plan. Shifted. We actually had a different person in the position at first, and then when she left, we hired Michelle. Michelle has done a great job of this municipal building inventory and then tracking the energy and bringing more and more buildings onto that system so that we know what energy we're using. Like at one point, we didn't know all of the buildings that the city owned and had electricity accounts to because it was individual building or individual departments. So now we have this comprehensive list. We're entering this data monthly, and we can track it. And it's hard to say like, well, that's worth X amount of dollars, but to me, it's a long-term investment because we have a better understanding of how we're spending money, and energy prices are increasing, as I stated. And so this is like how we can invest in our buildings to save money in the future. It's an avoided cost, which is why it's hard to put numbers to it. I also think all of the work that she did on the Youth Climate Action Fund, that went to, there were mini grants in to the tune of up to $5,000 for youth-led projects, but all of that money came to Dubuque. And so there's an economic multiplier impact that I haven't calculated out. But if I did, I think it would show that a lot of that money stayed here and is invested here, and not just the environmental impacts, but the actual money was spent in the city. And so that's another, that was a project that Michelle shepherded and really supported.
Thank you. I talk a lot about my orientation process, and we do have a lot of buildings. I've been in, I think, almost all of them now. And so in terms of the municipal building inventory, is that process is complete now, and we know?
We know all the buildings, including all of the things that have electricity that are like pump stations and other, like where we're paying electricity. And then we're bringing on buildings. So not all of the buildings are in the Energy Star portfolio, but we're slowly working with staff to enter those in. There's a bunch of pre-data you have to load about a building, and then you can start tracking the energy usage. And so that is something that we're continually working on. Our Green Iowa AmeriCorps members help enter that data. Admin staff across all different departments are entering it monthly once they're all set up. And we've been talking about potentially adding that to our performance measurements so that you can all see how many buildings are coming online each year.
In terms of, have you set a goal for, because there's tremendous value in conservation of energy and energy efficiencies with, call it LED light bulbs, automatic lights, solar panels, all that. Have you guys understand, you've done the building inventory, understanding where our energy consumption lies, what would be, and maybe it's too soon right now to say, but do you have a goal in mind of, hey, we're going to cut energy costs by X%?
I don't know off the top of my head, but in our climate action plan, we do talk about municipal buildings and how much we'll cut the energy, and I can follow up with you in an email about what the exact number is, but it's built into our climate action plan, so we're certainly working on it. And again, some of it is spend the money up front for the longer term savings. But yes, we do have a goal. What the goal is, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, thank you. No, that's okay. Yeah, I do think, like I said, there could be tremendous savings and value in the role and understanding what we're consuming and how to consume it, less of it or more efficiently. The other thing that I'd like to bring up is there is, I think, an opportunity with the amount of buildings we have to look into utilizing solar within our infrastructure. You know, I think about our new Great Minds campus and all that's entailed out there, and the tremendous roof space that's up there. And those are investments that necessarily we as a city would not have to take on. You know, and we can utilize via the power purchase agreement on those panels and be able to use that as a revenue generator for the city. Not only to utilize the electricity for ourselves, but also sell that back to the grid. And there's developers out there that are actively looking for projects. And I think that would be something for us to take into account. And I think, you know, as we think about what we've heard from residents is, hey, how are we going to measure this? How do we understand, you know, what the goals are, what the objectives are? I think that would be, you know, my recommendation would be something to definitely look into, because we have the assets in the buildings. We have the energy consumption, as we know, from all the activities that we do as a city, that we have to do as a city. And so I think there's some real opportunity there for us as we go forward. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? All right. Yeah, Mr.
I
Sell.
have got another question. When I was in a presentation recently, they talked about the fact that air quality can impact the way that industries in your community could be penalized if we don't reach a certain air quality. And I don't know if Mike, if you could address that, or Gina, if you could address that, to impede industrial growth if you get beyond that, those air quality standards.
Sure. So you're probably reflecting back on several years ago. The Greater Dubuque Development Corporation was concerned because the city of Dubuque was reaching what's called non-attainment, which means our particulate matter in the air was reaching EPA standards. They call it the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. And if you exceed those standards, it's very difficult for industry to get permits to expand. And you basically won't get any new industries to come because they know they'll be under these limitations, and they don't want to be under that microscope. Now, the good news for us was as we started paying attention to that and tracking it, some good things happened. I have to admit, it was before the pandemic, so it was a little while ago. So I don't remember all the changes that happened. One thing is the Lion Energy shut down their power plant on the riverfront, and I think that really helped us. First, they switched from coal to natural gas, and then they shut it down. So I think that really helped us. But there also must have been things that happened in other places, because the monitoring they do doesn't just monitor what you produce in your own city. It's whatever comes into your city from wherever. And it's basically based on the prevailing winds. And so there must have been things that happened in other communities that positively impacted our numbers, because our numbers did come down fairly significantly. But it's a good example of things that we need to be paying attention to if we want to stay a successful community.
Yeah, I think it's just important to note that those kind of things can have an economic impact on our community. So thanks for what you do.
Okay, now I'm back for the numbers talk. And I thank you for your presentation, and where it said that we have zero cost to the resident. But it clearly says in improvement package number 1, that it says the net property tax cost is $103,000. Now, I mean, is it an additional $103,000 or not, I guess? Are the taxpayers paying $103,000? And if not, can we use that for the reducing the, I'm trying to get to $300,000 savings. And if we're not going to be using that, and we have another way to pay besides the taxpayers of Dubuque, if you wouldn't mind talking to me about that, please.
All right, I think it's an error. It does say Inflation Reduction Act funds, so.
It does.
Yeah, but you're right, council member. It does say net property tax cost. That's an error. There is not a property tax cost to that position. It is 100% paid by the Inflation Reduction Act funds, which was the tax credit that Gina Bell previously described. So that's just a mistake in the wording on the document.
So is that $100,000 then eligible to be,
It was never from property tax.
see what I'm trying to do here?
Right, sure, yeah. Yeah,
But-
it's
and
just
I-
words on a piece of paper.
And I
It's not-
appreciate, I mean, but you can see how residents would think that it's going to be coming
Yes,
from.
because we said that in the document. I could see why they'd think that, right?
Well, of course, because it says so right here.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that, I mean, they know that, you know, the mistakes are made with about 10,000 entries into this, you know, tax budget. But I'm glad that we've explained that a little bit. And I appreciate all the input and I mean, that they have, they really went off on the idea that they're going to be paid extra, paying extra taxes for this, and whether it's worth that or not, everybody has their opinion. But thank you for the update and the clarification that there are not going to be any resident taxes used on this very valuable position. And again, thank you for all the great work, and look forward to an update on everything you've done in the next year.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. And I know it was said in the presentation, but I think it's worth repeating. So when this tax credit was discovered and applied for based on projects that had already happened in our city, like at the airport with the solar, we would have never known about this without Michelle Kim and Gina Bell doing the research, the hard research, to find out that this program of tax credits being eligible for a city that doesn't pay taxes to get. So we would have never gotten this money. And now this money not only is going to pay for this position, but it's also going to pay for us to put solar on 2 of our buildings. So that's going to be a permanent savings in energy cost once we install those solar installations.
And the finance department did the hard math. Let's make sure credit is given.
Make sure we throw the credit towards the finance department, sure. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Staver.
So kind of like what Mr. Resnick was saying, on 404, it says net property tax costs. Does it say that because it's a reimbursement with the tax credits?
Go ahead.
Jennifer Larson, Chief Financial Officer. No, it's an error in the budget document. It should
Oh,
not
that one,
say
that's an error as well?
property tax impact at all.
Zero.
It should have referenced the inflation.
It references it, but yeah, it still has the.
No, where it's next to the number as the funding source.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So to be clear, that net property tax number underneath there on the bottom of page 5 should say 0. Right.
On 404 and, yeah, the other one.
And on number 1 of 4.
Number 1.
Yeah.
I guess I would go back to my first question too about, the requirement of your department to get, some of these grants, but, I mean, to Mike's point, without the department, whether it's required or not, we wouldn't even know about the grants, right? Okay. Yeah, so, credit to you. Thank you.
All right, I got a couple things to close us out here. First, Mr. Leidick, the point you brought up I thought was really interesting, this idea of the benefits of solar just beyond the energy savings benefits and the benefit of just being good for the environment. There's a potential revenue benefit that we could be looking at, and I'm very intrigued by that. I look forward to continuing that conversation in the year ahead, because I do think that's something that we should be talking about. And then finally, there was some public input from Mr. Gary Linden, who brought up a very specific concern, but it actually, to me, seems like it fits more with the fire department as a budget, or something that would be something that we need you to look into a little bit more, Mike. If you would please, about the container fee. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with this and would be interested in learning more, but I don't think it fits with what we're talking about right here.
I think you're right. So I am familiar with it, and so, yeah, we will get you more information about it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. And we'll hopefully be able to bring that back up publicly so we can speak about it again at a later time during a different public hearing. Okay, thank you, everybody. Great discussion. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all the presenters tonight. We do appreciate that. On next to the City Council fiscal year budget presentation, which I believe is going to be Corey once again? No? Oh,
No,
Mike this time. All right.
Yeah, this is the only one they trust me with, the only presentation. But only because it's so simple. So there's really not much story to tell here. Basically, the city council budget stays pretty much the same from year to year. The only difference here is when there's a mayoral election, that's the time when the council can look at the wage scales of the elected officials, and they appoint what's called the compensation task force. And so that report was brought to the mayor and city council. They adopted a change in compensation. And so the property tax support for the city council is now increasing by $9,468. And let's see, about $5,100 of that was the wage change. Most of the rest of it is, if you go to page 24, number 10, is the information technology recharges. And this line item includes recharges for maintenance agreement costs on citywide software based on the numbers of users in the department. So this is a maintenance agreement that every department pays for, including now the city council, because you have 7 users of our devices. So, and that increase is almost $4,200. So that pretty much covers your $9,468 increase in cost.
Okay. That's everything? All right. So that is everything for the city council presentation then, fairly simple. Do we have any public input on this particular budget?
Clark Slows, 2925 Burlington Street. The issue, I don't know where it would fall, but I'm choosing to bring it here. Interesting thing, after the last public hearing, kind of go home, go to Facebook. Lo and behold, you see a group, Dubuque Deserves Better, has their own tax calculator. And I'm thinking, ooh, cool, another tool to play with. And just to compare it with the city's tax calculator, I plug my own home numbers into it. And I'm going to use the word, they're in error compared to the city's tax calculator, compared to my Excel budget sheet that I use. And I was trying to figure out why the error. And it looked like the way they applied the tax credit. Instead of just, taking the 4.85 times the city levy, they applied, the total, the $30 levy, when you look at every taxing entity, and applied that $147, into, what my city bill would be. I wish their number would be my number, but it's not. So I went and the finance example that was presented at the public hearing, plugged that data in there. It's in error. And I'm thinking, okay, I found the reason why mine was in error, tried to apply that same reasoning to that example. No, that didn't work. Still can't figure out why the error. So I went and chose 2 more examples, just went in the Beacon, randomly picked. And I happened to pick one where if you look at what their assessed value went up, what the rollback was, applied the appropriate levy rate, what that's proposed that they would pay in fiscal year 27 compared to what they're paying in 26, the actual dollars that they paid would go down. While you look at one of those items that they had there, what the assessment caused your tax bill to increase, they said it's going up. So if your net taxes are going down, how can your assessment, they're just looking at the assessment. If the assessment went up less than 6%, but your rollback gave you more than 6% gain, your taxes, your net taxes aren't going up. And so far, I've looked at 4 examples, including mine. They're in error. And I thought, geez, I thought about maybe I should start hunting around to see if I can find one that, hey, it actually works, it jives with what the city calculator says, what my Excel spreadsheet says. And that would have been a never-ending story. You're not going to find one. And the thing that bothers me the most about that, they have a button there that goes, okay, here's the information that their calculator says what it is, and that there's an automatic fill-in form that would send that to each and every council member. So right now, there is a question about, is that calculator accurate or not? And if it's not accurate, you should be treating those emails that you get from that source suspect. They need to change their calculator. It's wrong, in my opinion. We need accurate information. If you disagree with what the council does, that's fine. I don't always agree with what they do. Don't always agree with what the city manager does. But if you're going to use information, use the correct information. There are at least 4 people in this room that are understanding what that calculator is doing. And one of them is sitting in a council seat and is a banker. I bet you if he plugged his numbers in there, he's going to find out it's an error. In fact, I challenge each and every one of you, take your own home, plug it in to their calculator, plug it into the city calculator, and ask the question, why are they different? The other thing on that tax calculator, they have the thing about, what the city utilities, what the increase does to the average home. Now, the only way I could get their number to jive is if they're using 8,500 gallons. Now, the city used to use 6,000 gallons as the average home. Now it's 3,200. So, they don't say, what are they using? What's the number they're using for the average home? Is it my 8,500, which I hope I'm wrong, or is it the 6,000 and they just didn't, look at what they consider the average home of 3,200, but it doesn't add up. There needs to be something looked into on this. There shouldn't be that great a difference. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Clark, for your comments. Anything else on the city council presentation? Anything virtually, Corey? All right. Okay, any comments from us? All right. Okay, well then we can move on to the, sorry, I lost track of what's next. The city clerk's office. Is that going to be you, Corey?
The city clerk's presentation is going to be, it has been pre-recorded since
Oh,
Trish is
excellent.
not here. So Felicia's going to play it for us. Trish is on the line, so she'll be available to answer questions at the end.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Go ahead and play that, Felicia.
Hello, and good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the City Council, and City Manager Van Milligan. My name is Trish Gleason, and I am the Assistant City Clerk for the City of Dubuque. Tonight's presentation is a bit unique for our office. This is a pre-recorded presentation because City Clerk Adrian Breitfelder is currently on leave, and I am presenting at a conference for Iowa municipal clerks in Des Moines. I am attending this presentation via phone to answer any questions anyone may have after our presentation. I want to thank you all for the ability to present in this manner, allowing me to honor my previous commitments and allowing the city clerk her leave time. This slide covers our mission statement. Our department's key duties include providing information and support to the mayor and city council, city staff, and the public related to city council records, boards and commissions applications, and various licenses and permits. The city clerk's office is staffed by 4 FTE positions. The city clerk, Adrian Breitfelder, myself, Assistant City Clerk Trish Gleason, permanent clerk Pamela McCarran, and administrative support professional Tuesday Bluss. The city clerk's office focuses on public safety in multiple ways, such as civil service hiring. Our office is involved in the civil service promotional process for police and fire. playing a role in staffing critical public safety positions within the community. Background checks on licenses and permits. As part of the process for obtaining certain departmental licenses and permits, a background check is conducted on applicants. This requirement ensures that those applying for licenses and permits in roles with frequent public contact go through a thorough vetting process to help safeguard the community. Special event processes. Special event applications are reviewed by multiple city departments, coordinated by the city clerk's office, to ensure that events are hosted safely and in compliance with local and state laws. I would like to point out 3 of the city clerk's office prior year highlights. We have updated the special event process in the city code to clarify unclear language and streamline the overall workflow. These changes make the process more straightforward for both city staff who review the applications and for the public, and they have created meaningful efficiencies for everyone involved. We also added a new mobile food vendor license section to the city code. The primary goal was to strengthen public safety by establishing clear enforcement mechanisms while also increasing transparency around the requirements mobile vendors must meet. In addition, we transitioned most of our license and permits to online CitizenServe platform, making them easier for the public to access and improving internal efficiencies for staff who process these applications. For future initiatives, we are continuing work on completing the searchable text conversion of the historic council proceedings. This will make it easier for staff and the public to locate information within those documents. We also have a future goal of transitioning all boards and commission agendas into the Civic Plus agenda management software. This shift will provide greater consistency across all meeting materials and streamline internal workflows for agenda creation and publication. Another initiative focusing on implementing and standardizing renewal and expiration schedules for all mobile food vendor licenses. Our intent is to create operational efficiencies for city staff while also improving the experience for vendors. With a single predictable expiration date each year, vendors will have a clear understanding of when to renew their license, reducing confusion and helping ensure compliance. The city clerk's office provides city staff support for the Civil Service Commission, which plays an intricate role in the staffing and hearing procedures for police and fire positions. We are very grateful for the commitment of each of our commissioners. Carla Heathcote is the chair, Miguel Jackson, Julie Beckenstead, Otto Kruger, and Randall Ludwitz. Thank you to all of them. We'd like to take a moment tonight to share some fun finds from old council records. Our administrative support professional, Tuesday Bluss, reads through text of old council proceedings to generate searchable text for our current records. She has come across a lot of interesting facts from this work, and we thought it'd be fun to share some of them with you tonight. In 1857, a resolution was passed agreeing to pay a lamplighter for lighting and keeping the lamps in good working order, and it was resolved that Main Street shall be lighted with gas and the services of a lamplighter rendered. August 5th, 1864, an ordinance to regulate the sale of wood was introduced, creating the office of wood measurer with defined duties. November 4th, 1869, a resolution was passed that a hog weigher must file a monthly report and pay over into the city treasury 5 cents of the gross proceedings from weighing hogs. In 1886, the street commissioner reported in favor of allowing $5.50 for damages caused to an outhouse by a rock rolling down from Bluff Street Extension. While the city does still receive and process claims for damages, we have not received any for damages to an outhouse lately. The last fun fact we chose to share is on May 3rd, 1886, the first reading of an ordinance to restrain cows and horses and other animals from running at large was introduced. It appears animals running at large has been an issue for many, many years now. This slide shows our requested property tax support for fiscal year 2027. The net property tax ask for the city clerk's office is just over $83,000, which converts to an ask of $1.28 per average homeowner property tax cost for the city clerk's office. I would like to point out that city council election expenses are biannual, and we do not anticipate having any election expenses in fiscal year 2027. The city clerk's office has two recommended improvement packages. Package number 1 is proposing fee increases for specific licenses and permits so that our rates better align with other Iowa cities or better reflect the staff work required to administer these permits. Package number 2 is requesting to upgrade the administrative support professional's desktop to a laptop so that this person can continue answering calls remotely when City Hall is closed due to inclement weather, which is when we typically receive a very high volume number of calls. This table outlines the specific changes we are proposing to various licenses and permits. Several of our licenses, such as taxi driver and non-motorized driver permits, require a $9.95 background check fee in addition to the permit cost. We are recommending updates to the application fee so applicants can pay an even consolidated amount. This will be more convenient for applicants, many of whom prefer to pay in cash, and will streamline processes here in our office. We are also proposing an increase to the taxi cab business license fee. In addition to the license fee, taxi cab businesses are required to register each vehicle in their fleet at a rate of $30 per vehicle. For our 3 taxi companies, the number of registered vehicles ranges from 3 to 12. Additionally, we are recommending increasing both the annual and 6-month mobile food vendor license. These adjustments more closely align our fees with those in other Iowa cities. This slide shows the number of permitted special events held each year over the past 3 years. It highlights the substantial staff effort involved in reviewing each application to ensure events are safe and compliant with city requirements. It also reflects the breadth of community events that contribute to Dubuque's quality of life. Reoccurring events and markets are made up of multiple individual event dates. Proclamations are one of the primary ways community members engage with city council meetings. So we feel it's helpful to show the number of issued proclamations each year. Proclamations highlight important community initiatives and celebrations, and anyone interested in submitting one can contact the city clerk's office for guidance. Our final slide tonight shows the percentage of boards and commission openings. Because appointments and terms are continually cycling, this number shifts throughout the year. We consistently look for new ways to promote openings, and our collaboration with departments such as communications and community impact have helped us increase the number of applicants. This has been a quick synopsis of what goes on in the city clerk's office. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Trish, for that presentation. We are in a public hearing on the city clerk's office budget. Do we have any public input on this budget this evening? Yeah, come on up.
Leonard Dress, 541 Groveland Place. I didn't move yet. There's a female employee down there, Tuesday, I think is her name, and I hope she's there forever, because like with the dog tax or license, going to taxes or New York or wherever it was, you know, I don't have a computer. I don't need a computer. So it was like, what do I do? And I was talking with her. I said, you know, I used to pay I want to pay my dog's taxes. And she pointed me in the right direction. So I went up, I can't remember the name of the building. It's, I think, Animal Control up on 13th and Main. I remember when I was a little kid, it was the old Medical Associates building. And I went there, I called there, talked to them. They set it up for me to come down, bring them a check. So it could be sent to Texas, New York, or wherever it had to go. So I could, my wife and I would have our little Chihuahua registered legal. And that, so I told her, I said, you know, I went back and I told her just last week, because I go down there to get copies of the agenda and that for the next meeting for a buddy of mine who can't make it down here, but he can watch it on TV. This way here, he has the paperwork that we have. And she assisted me with that too. So, you know, I really appraise them ladies down there in that department. They do a great job. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, well, thank you, Leonard, for those comments. Anything virtually, Corey? All right. We can, back to us for discussion then. Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
Well, I'm going to agree with Leonard first, because that was, they're a great department. They work together, and they're all about serving our residents. So we have, Trish is on the line? Okay, so Trish, would you happen to know, Ms. Gleason, how many phone calls we get because looking for city information? I mentioned it the other day, and city information calls are directed towards your department. Do you know round numbers? Do you get like 5 a day, 10 a day, 2 a day?
Trish Gleason, Assistant City Clerk. Actually, we probably get about maybe 10 to 15 an hour, not a day. Most of those calls coming in they begin saying, you're probably not the office we need to talk to, but we don't know where to call. So we're calling you. And then we ask specific questions, trying to determine what their needs are. And then we can either help them with their needs, or we transfer them to the proper department. So our phone rings all day long, basically.
Great. Well, I'm actually very happy about that, because there's a real need for people to talk to other people about what's going on, and you help them person to person. My other question is, when you get a call asking for general information, can you tell from the number that it is an outside call? And then is it routed to the assistant or clerk, permit clerk, or administrative support clerk? Or does the city clerk actually pick up those phone calls as well?
The administrative support staff, Tuesday Bless, she is the designated person in our office, and the majority of the calls come into her line. If she's on the phone, the phones will automatically ring to any of the rest of us in the office. We all have our own individual lines that individuals contact us directly when they know if they have like a liquor license question, they will call me directly. And so when we get the calls, we do get many calls from internal, which is, you know, city staff members calling, asking questions, fiche or agenda items questions. And so we do see whether those calls are internal or external, but we don't track them like we used to.
Right, but it's good. Thank you very much to let me know how those are handled. I'm glad because Tuesday is so great with people, as was just attested to tonight by a resident. And thank you for letting me know. It's a very important thing, and I'm glad we've got a great system for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or discussion on this budget? I'm not seeing any. All right. Well, Trish, thank you for being available, and thank you for taking the time to record that presentation and give it to us. The city clerk's office is such an essential office. In fact, it is the most essential office in any city government in Iowa, from what I understand. The main requirement is you have to have a city clerk, so we really appreciate the fact that you are there, and the work that you do is extensive. So, Trish, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all. Have a good evening.
Yes, you too. All right. Well, we are on then to our final presentation of the evening, which is the city attorney's office.
Could you switch the input? We still see the presentation.
I mean, I'm good with thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
No, you didn't. No, it's okay. I think we just have to.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you, Felicia.
All right, we're good to go.
All right, Crowner Brumwell, City Attorney's Office. The city clerk's presentation reminded me that we are still in the Attorney's Office doing the same work that we did back in 1886 when they were writing ordinances restraining cows, horses, and other animals because in 2025 I had a better ordinance. And I had a conversation this week about bees, so just know that this is always the gig, right? There we go. All right, so the City Attorney's Office. Our mission statement is to provide legal counsel to the City Council, to the City Manager, to all officials and departments of the organization, including boards and commissions, to ensure that the city delivers excellent municipal services that support urban living and sustainable city plans for the community's future, and facilitate critical access to human services and ties to financially sound city government and citizens getting bang for their buck, tax and otherwise. Our office is 5.62 full-time equivalents. That includes myself, Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl, Assistant City Attorney Jason Lehman, Assistant City Attorney Anna Woolley, Joni Meetinger, Lead Administrative Support Professional, and we have currently an open Administrative Support Professional. When you talk about the staffing in our office, just for context, I think it's important to remind y'all, we talked about this last fall, but Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl celebrated his 50th anniversary with the City of Dubuque on August 1st of 2025. And last month, I myself hit the 20-year mark with the city. So we've been around a while. Joni Meetinger just celebrated her 5th anniversary in our office. Joni is not with us this evening as she is home, hopefully snuggling a very cute, teeny tiny baby. And Anna Woolley, joined our office about 5 months ago, and Anna actually herself is at home recovering from a surgery, so she's not. She might be with us virtually, but she is not with us presently. But I do have Barry and Jason with me this evening as well. Merrill Crawford, the infamous Merrill Crawford, is helping us out a couple days a week. And as everybody knows, he is the kindest, calmest, loveliest voice on the phone, and everyone who interacts with him has a good experience with the city. The City Attorney's Office requested property tax support for FY27 has actually gone down from FY26. It is $258,165, which is approximately $4.04 to the average homeowner in costs for the City Attorney's Office. Last year, that property tax support was just under $280,000 and $4.37 to the average homeowner. The reasons for the decrease are multiple. The first is that our office is where the budget lives for claims against the city, and that is done using a multi-year average, and so our claims experience actually decreased last year, or the average that goes into that went down in calculating those figures. So as you've heard recently from Tony Breitbach, and I will just mention here again quickly, there are a lot of ongoing safety efforts within the organization currently, and that includes education, assessment, review, and what I will refer to as kind of after-action report review, where we talk about what happened and what could we have had in place, or could we have done better to, prevent, minimize, et cetera, the claims experience. The second item that has resulted in this decrease is an office reorganization. We have been doing some succession planning, position analysis, and there have been some changes to the state code that resulted in us going from 2.62 attorneys previously with a civil rights specialist, a paralegal, and a legal administrative assistant to having 3.62 attorneys, a lead administrative support professional, and an administrative support professional. The paralegal and the civil rights specialists were classified at the same range, and the lead administrative support professional and the administrative support professional are both lower grades. So as we have filled the assistant city attorney position and restructured some of these other positions, the restructure results in some salary savings due to different grades, different steps, and different tenure within the organization. And the third is some software savings. So we switched providers for our legal research and database work that we do, so where we go find our case law and our attorney general opinions and things like that. We got a quote from another provider. It was appealing. Barry doesn't like it as much as everybody else, but he's coming along slowly but surely. So that's kind of where some of those decreases have come into play. When you talk about our office and the connection to public safety, as we so often do, we facilitate the activities of other departments as we are primarily an internal serving department. Now, that's not to say that we don't have external functions. We do have a prosecution arm and a municipal infraction arm where we deal with the public. That is primarily with code enforcement, and that includes building code standards, nuisance codes, animal control, zoning, traffic violations, and simple misdemeanor codes. So if someone gets a municipal infraction or a traffic ticket and they go to court for that, they are going to be interacting with someone from the city attorney's office, and we are going to be troubleshooting how we can achieve code compliance and set deadlines and working with our staff to bring properties and individuals and behaviors into compliance with the city code so they are not a problem for the community. We do administrative search warrants for staff members if there is reason to believe there are issues at properties and staff need to go in to ensure public safety. So we are a part of that process. I'm going to talk about this a little more later, but we are involved in the process to petition for title to abandoned properties, which are often a blight on neighborhoods due to the conditions, sometimes illegal activity occurring at those properties, and the ultimate goal of that process is to return them to productive tax-producing use. We review all contracts, specifications, and insurance that result in public improvements in the community that impact public safety, and also those for the police department, the fire department, and the emergency services 911. We do a significant amount of training, some of which touches on public safety. We do consultation for any and all departments, and as mentioned a moment ago, we do process claims against the city, and we do the post-claim evaluations as it relates to safety within the organization, but also the community. Back up. Related to this, we do have one improvement package that is for licensing of software on an annual basis that will allow us to directly access records for efficiency so that we do not have to rely on police department staff and bother them when we make those requests. That is $600 a year, recommended and recurring. For fiscal year 26, highlights, ongoing projects, future initiatives. As you know, we are actively involved in property acquisition and sale. We handle the property tax appeals. I have a slide on that coming up. We work on the water and other utility extensions throughout the community, including contracts for any upgrades, extensions, construction. We do board and commission support, litigation and claims. Open records requests come through our office. Collective bargaining agreements, if there are updates, we assist the Human Resources Department and will work with unions as needed. We process the civil service appeals, grievance arbitrations related to the collective bargaining agreements, cell tower leases, shoreline protection. We're working with ITC on the new transmission line, the Dubuque Marina lease, and then we have a gamut there of training that we do on an ongoing and as needed basis, some of which is community facing. So for example, I teach legal and fair tenant screening and fair housing law twice a year to a class of landlords. Some of these other trainings are internal facing, but we do periodically provide the information externally upon request. One thing that didn't make the list here, but Trish reminded me in her presentation, that we also process the taxi cab appeals. So if someone appeals their denial of a taxi cab license application, we are involved working with the city clerk's office and the police department and the city manager to process those as well. There we go. Major projects recently have included the Tyler contract module implementation, which I think we talked about. I think it was the last regular council meeting, not your last meeting, but the last regular council meeting where we talked about the breadth of signed contracts that appeared on that agenda. Some of that is because of this Tyler contract module implementation that we have been going through. In our office, since January 1 of this year alone, we have had 111 requests come in for review as part of that process. And so what that means is every department, when they are getting their contracts lined up, they submit it to us through a workflow. It comes into me. I try and determine who I think has bandwidth in the office, and then I assign that to one of the attorneys, and then we review that and provide feedback, comments, suggested edits to staff, and then we work with them on the back and forth with the vendor, contractor, or the provider that we are negotiating with. The Tyler contract module work continues. We are working on master services agreements currently. There will be a number of these, and you will start to see in upcoming meetings some additional reporting and information on those. Safety manual has been undergoing a large review, update, and edit. Jason has been working on that. As you can see, I've included a list of a whole host of other bits and pieces of projects that we have worked on. A number of them are related to development agreements. There are a number of MOUs, contracts, pieces of litigation, ordinances, resolutions. We're all over the place. Lots going on. Prior year accomplishments specific to development agreements. On the left side, you can see a very long list of those. Those are primarily done by Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl. And recently, we've been introducing Anna to the development agreement world so that she can start to become familiar with that process. You can see on the right side, there are still a significant number of them that are in process at different points of drafting, waiting to close, waiting for the real estate transaction to occur, et cetera. Tax appeals. We handle the tax appeals and work with the Property Assessment Appeal Board. That's what the PAAB acronym is there. Some of what you see up here are, well, settled. Some are still pending. Some of them reoccur annually. You can see the one at the bottom, that's been an annual tax appeal. We actually received a decision just yesterday from the Iowa Court of Appeals on the 2021 property tax appeal there. So just to give you an idea of timing, that was the 2021 tax appeal, and we got it in April of 2026. So this can be a slow, time-consuming process. Human rights investigations are handled in our office. These are outside investigations. These are investigations where the city is not a named or involved party, but the city is the neutral investigative body when complaints are filed under Title VIII of the City Code of Ordinances, where an individual files a complaint against a business or an entity in the community in the areas of employment, housing, public accommodation, credit, and education. And that ties directly to Chapter 216 of the Iowa Code as well. Anna is handling those investigations for us. As I mentioned, Anna started with us, I think it was November 3rd of 2025, and since that time, she has gotten 11 cases closed or resolved. There are 10 active investigations currently, so she is working at these at a very good clip and moving them along in the process. Anna, specifically related to this work, is working towards an ADA coordinator certification. This certification is going to help her not only with these investigations, but it is going to skill her up and give her some resources that can be used for our staff internally as we deal with ADA issues as citizens present them to us. So this is a two-factor win, having Anna get this certification. And we are kicking her off with her first big seminar attendance in May at the Upper Midwest Employment Law Institute, which is a very renowned employment law continuing legal education seminar across the Midwest. So she's going to go get a lot of education and resources, and we'll again be bringing that back for our office, but also city staff. Every time it's making me do something different to get to the slide. There we go. Okay, as I mentioned on petition properties earlier, is something that we do. From 2014 to 2025, we have had roughly in the ballpark of 60 to 65 properties that have gone through this process. These are properties that are can be a blight on the neighborhood, can be a drain on city resources, whether that is calls to the police department, the fire department, animal control, the housing department for nuisances. And we take referrals from community members. We also take referrals from staff. This process has been quite effective. This number up here are the ones where we have ended up with the properties. In a whole host of scenarios, we have not ended up with the properties because as we have initiated the properties, we've been able to engage a property owner and work with them to resolve the issue. Say, give them a deadline to have the property sold by, and if they sell the property and or they have an agreement and a closing scheduled, we don't initiate this process. So we try and attack it from a number of different ways, and it's been quite an effective tool. Just yesterday, we had a group of staff from the city of Davenport and 2 or 3 community organizations in Davenport that came up and met with myself in the housing department, where we walked them through how we work this process and how we target these. And I think they found it to be a productive meeting, and I hope that they can use it too. Here is an example of a property in the last year or two that I think has made a very big difference in the community. This is 2095 University Avenue. This is right at the intersection of Loris Boulevard and Delhi, University, there we go. I had another one in the Delhi area. This was a house where the property owner died more than 10 years ago. But after her death, her son moved into the home and lived there and was upkeeping it. And then he passed away. And there were no family members interested in taking over the property, no one willing to open up an estate, and it began to fall in a state of disrepair where the city ended up dealing with the grass and the weeds and the snow. And this is a very visible corner of town. You need to make sure that there's visibility and clearance because you have UD and students and things like that. So when we obtained title to the property, we were able to get it to the ground. And as you all know, as part of the East-West Corridor study, there's going to be a roundabout on that one day. And so this was a good property to get a hold of and to secure and at least have it be not a nuisance while we wait for the East-West Corridor to be funded and constructed. So I like these because it's a visible manifestation of the work that we do in the office, which we don't always get to see on a regular basis. Continuing legal education hours, we do a significant amount of municipal law continuing education annually. Senior Counsel Barry Lindahl and I last weekend spent time at the International Municipal Lawyers Association conference in Washington, D.C., and came home with some great materials from sessions where I've already set up meetings with 2 or 3 different departments to talk about the information and the topics and to strategize whether we need to update any of our practices, policies, procedures, and even in some cases, ordinances. So we very much appreciate you investing in our continuing education. It is mandated that we maintain a certain amount each year by the state of Iowa to maintain our licensure. I like to think that we do a good job of, marshaling those funds and those resources appropriately and putting them to value for the organization and the community. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Krenna. Well, we are in a public hearing first, so do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this particular budget? Yeah, please come on up.
She was talking about, new laws, ordinances, the B thing. And, I have a lot of people that complain about the panhandlers, and I don't expect you to say anything because of your position that you're in. But, it's like, okay, you did something to move them. Moving them don't solve the problem. Who's enabling them? The citizens. Is it causing a safety problem? Yes, it is. Mayor Kavanaugh, I'm going to use you and myself again for an example. You're behind me down on South Locust. The speed limit is 35. And we're both in the straight line. You're right behind me. And all of a sudden I see the panhandler there and I slam on my brakes. You rear end me because I want to throw him a $5 bill or whatever. Who's going to be at fault? Most likely I'm going to probably have whiplash, which I deserve it for slamming on my brakes and causing you to rear end me so I could do something, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's good, but I think me being up here talking about it, you just can all say, hey, Leonard is against it. And now to find a way to solve the problem. Moving them is not solving it. It's whoever is enabling them. And we probably have license plate readers down in that area, cameras, and someone probably monitors them, I would think, I'd hope. And all of a sudden they see me do that, well, get some type of fine made, $400 or $500, and plus go to court. What if you want to battle it and pay that cost? And you just send it to me in the mail, and hey, that's my fine for breaking the law. that. You know, it's just like back in the 80s when the city of Dubuque had an issue in the late 80s trying to get people off the corners and that, moving them, taking them to jail, letting them go, they're back the next night. But when they went to the ones that were enabling them to be there, you know what? All of a sudden, them people became public record and that, and everybody knew it, and slowed down, and what happened? They're gone. That's all I got to say.
Leonard, can you give your name and address one more time since it's...
Okay, Leonard Dress, 541 Groveland Place, same name, same address.
All right, thank you, Leonard. Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, that's all the public input here. Anything virtually? Nothing virtually, so back to us for discussion. Not seeing any on this side. Ms. Weffel.
Brenna, I think in the past when you have come to us, you have asked for additional legal staff. And I just wanted to open up a space for you to maybe talk with us about the bandwidth of the office and the prediction for what you might need in future years.
So I have previously asked for staff. You'll notice that I did not this year, because as we were able to reorganize the office, we were able to transition one position from a non-attorney position to an attorney position, all within the existing budget. And so that has opened up some opportunity for us and some additional bandwidth. And so what we are doing right now is getting Anna up to speed. And once we kind of, she's been here 5 months. So once we get her really kind of onboarded fully, we're going to have some more bandwidth and some more capacity. And in the short term, that is going to be great. We're going to be able to hopefully clear things quicker, be more responsive, things of that nature. I anticipate that in another 2 to 3 years, we might be talking about some further structure changes, and we're talking about that internally right now and what that might look like, because as you can guess, the needs of the organization are kind of evolving and changing, and some of the trends where we might be needed are different, and we may need some particular skill sets. And so we're actively talking about that and thinking about it. And we have engaged the police department, we've engaged the city manager's office, we've engaged the city clerk's office, and other departments as needed to talk about where there are perhaps unmet needs or where there could be some additional support provided. So I anticipate we'll be back to you at some point, but not for a few years.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else have anything? No? All right. Well, Karina, we all work with you a lot. I mean, you sit here with us, you know, on a regular basis. Your office, we have had meetings with them as well, and we sincerely appreciate the work. I know that sitting in this role, I have learned to appreciate the role of the city attorney very, 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 very much. So thank you for everything that you do. I do appreciate that you continue to get the education that you need to be able to do your job well, even after being in it for 20 years, and some of us a little bit longer. But we do appreciate just everything that you're doing. So thank you very much for the presentation tonight and all the work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have a couple of action items here. The first is just our regular action item that we have, the budget items identified for separate discussion. I'll just remind everybody, we're going to have a more in-depth discussion about this on Monday. That might, I would expect that would bleed into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week for our other presentations too. But do we have anything that we need to discuss tonight? Nothing here? Okay. All right, then, Corey, you want to, I guess we probably should do the next one the way we normally do action items, but yeah, so let's do that. And then, actually, let me ask a question. Karina, since you're here. So normally, I'm sorry, because I thought about this when we see this. This is something different. We didn't have any public input or anything on this beforehand. So this is an action item, and I just want to make sure. It's the Civil Service Commission certified list for police chief. Is there a need for me to ask for public input as mayor, or would
This is an action item, correct? It's an action item. You do not need to ask for public input. This is treated as any regular action item would be on a normal standing agenda.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you helping out in your night kind of off. So if you would, please, Corey.
Well, I appreciate Corinna helping me out too, because I'm third string city
Right.
clerk here. Okay. You have one action item this evening. It is the Civil Service Commission, comes from the Civil Service Commission. It is the certified list for chief of police. Would you like me to read it?
No. We'll
Okay.
just, no, it's fine. We'll get a motion and move forward. Thank you. So I just need a motion here on the action item number 2.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Spring.
I motion that we receive and file.
And
And
there's another
approve
part, make a matter of record would be the,
and make this a matter of record.
okay, thank you, Mr. Sprank.
Second.
Yep. So I've got a motion from Mr. Sprank, a second from Ms. Wethel. So what this is the certified list for police chief, as has been mentioned. Chief Jensen is going to be retiring. So this is the certified list of candidates, internal candidates to choose from, correct?
Yes.
Can I just ask, why is this on tonight's agenda versus like Monday night's agenda?
You can ask, absolutely. So the list was certified by the Civil Service Commission. They met on Tuesday. Our intent to keep the process moving so that if we need to go out to externally, we have enough time, is that we would begin interviewing candidates next week.
I see.
And so we wanted to be able to share the resume with the interview teams.
Makes total sense. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right. Then, Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Leindecker?
Aye.
Roussel?
Aye.
Wethel?
Aye.
Staver?
Aye.
Sprank?
Aye.
Resnick?
Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, well, we have no further items on this agenda and no more meetings this week since the weekend is upon us. So we'll see everybody here on Monday.